Johnny Carson was a well-known person for many years, and everyone knew who he was. This wasn't because he was taught in school, but because he was one of America's best talk show hosts. When he started his late-night talk show on NBC in 1962, his popularity went through the roof. He set a new bar and became an icon in the business. Even though he was very successful, Carson kept many parts of his personal and professional life hidden from the public. This included the fact that he held grudges against other celebrities and did not get along with them. As a public figure, Carson's flaws are often looked at closely. That's why it was shocking to learn about his personal life. Like the rude guests he couldn't stand. Carson was grumpy and rude behind closed doors, but he was even worse on his honeymoon in Italy with his fourth wife, Alexis Moss. He allegedly got angry at her jokes and told her that if she kept making them, their marriage would not last. Carson was rude to his guests, so some of them didn't want to be on his show. He also had a hard time getting along with his parents. Johnny Carson had trouble with his personal relationships, even with his own family. He was married 4 times, but only his first wife, Rick Carson, gave him children. At the time, mental sickness was not well known, so Rick had a hard time. He was put in a mental hospital, and Johnny stopped going to see him, maybe because he felt ashamed. They stopped talking to each other until June 1991, when Rick's car went off a cliff in Morro Bay, California, killing him too soon. After the event, Carson talked about his son on his show, but their relationship did not get better. It was known that both the father and the son had drinking problems, and an event at Johnny's 25th anniversary party on the Queen Mary shows that both had problems. Rick got drunk, and Johnny got angry and even raised his fist in a dramatic way. Luckily, someone stepped in before any damage could be done. Johnny had a drinking problem that was well known, and in 1982, he was found guilty of driving while drunk. Even so, Johnny didn't deny that he had a drinking problem and got help to deal with it. Even though he kept quiet about it most of the time, his audience knew exactly what he was going through because he talked about it on his show and sometimes even laughed about it. In 1977, Carson told 60 Minutes that he was addicted to drugs and that he wanted to be a normal person who wasn't affected by them. "No, I don't do well with alcohol at all," he stressed. Even though he knew about the problem, he didn't stop drinking because of it. Johnny's second wife was Joanne Copeland, and neither Johnny nor Joanne Copeland had a particularly happy marriage. Johnny met Joanne, who was working as a flight crew, when he was the host of the game show Who Do You Trust in 1960. Their marriage, which started in 1963, only lasted 2 years because Copeland had an affair with football player Frank Gifford. Even after they broke up, Copeland was still supportive of Johnny's TV business, so you could say that they broke up on good terms. Henry Bushkin made false claims. When Johnny Carson's former lawyer Henry Bushkin wrote a book about Johnny's shady past in 2013, the world found out about Joanne's Copeland's relationship with Frank Gifford, which had been kept secret at the time. There may have been a lot of things going on, but most of Henry's claims have been questioned in light of the accusations. He said that Johnny had asked him to take pictures of Joanne with Frank and to write down what was going on. Bushkin also said that Johnny had a gun in his back pocket at the time, but he did not explain why Johnny had a gun. Bushkin says that Johnny was heartbroken when he found out that his wife had been cheating on him, and he was seen crying in public while looking for proof. Johnny says that at first, Bushkin didn't want to look for proof of the affair, but in the end he did. Ed McMahon, who co-hosts The Tonight Show with Sean Carson, is said to have gone out drinking with him. When Frank Gifford and Kathy Lee Gifford finally got married, she asked him about the rumors of cheating. Kathy Lee said on radio that Frank told her he couldn't remember, which makes sense since Frank was diagnosed with a brain illness around the same time. A note about Frank Gifford's death says that he died in 2015. The worst visitor. Johnny Carson was the host of The Tonight Show for more than 30 years. During that time, he had many famous people on his show. It makes sense that he didn't get along with everyone. Bob Hope, the famous comedian, was one of the guests he didn't like the most. The thing that really bothered Johnny about Bob was that he seemed too ready for the show. Even his jokes were written down before he said them. Johnny wasn't sure it was really happening. Johnny liked people who felt like they were part of the real world. Andrew Nichols, Carson's former co-head writer, once said, "Without a shared interest, there was nothing to talk about." Sally Field says that many artists and famous people don't feel safe making fat jokes, especially if they are about a specific person. They're rude and don't understand that a person's weight can be a choice, the result of health problems, or even something that's in their genes. So it shouldn't be used to shame other people. But these were the jokes that Carson liked best. He did them in a show and seemed to enjoy it. Because of this, Raymond Burr, who had 2 visits on the show, had to cancel all of them because he thought Carson's comments were scarier than his own and made fun of his size and shape. In 1980, Johnny Carson was considering purchasing the Aladdin Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. However, he eventually decided not to pursue the deal, and Dwayne Newton and a group of investors ended up buying the property. Despite this, the media portrayed it as though Carson had lost the deal to Newton. In response, Carson began making jokes on The Tonight Show about Newton's manhood, which angered Newton when they later crossed paths on the show. Newton drove to the studio to confront Carson in person and threatened a violent confrontation if Carson did not stop making jokes about him. Carson backed down and stopped making jokes about Newton's body. In a later interview with Larry King, Newton described Carson as a mean-spirited person who had harmed many people, adding that he believed Carson had focused his negativity on him. It seems that Newton's assessment of Carson may have some truth to it, as Carson had strong opinions about the celebrities he interviewed, and even battled against some within NBC, such as Tom Snyder from The Tomorrow Show, whom Carson criticized for lacking interest. Johnny Carson didn't have a high opinion of himself, and during a night out in Los Angeles bar in the late 1970s, he had a few glasses of wine and went on a rant about his co-worker Tom Snyder. However, this behavior didn't endear him to Snyder or improve their working relationship. When 2 regulars on his show, John Davidson and Joan Rivers, were given their own talk shows to compete with each other on screen, Carson was upset. He felt they were being disloyal to the network, especially Rivers, whose show would air at the same time as his on Fox. In 2009, Joan Rivers revealed in an interview with Larry King that she and Johnny Carson had a falling out after she took on a new hosting job, which only lasted a year. She claimed that she and Carson stopped being friends, despite her continued friendship with Johnny's co-host, Ed McMahon. Rivers also made the shocking revelation that she and Carson had an affair, which angered Carson when it became public knowledge. It is rumored that the affair took place while Rivers was still married to Edgar Rosenberg, a TV producer, and the tension between Rivers and Carson didn't get worse until 1989 when Rivers got her own show on Fox. It is well known that Johnny Carson was a distant and somewhat cold figure, giving the cold shoulder to guests and rarely engaging with them before or after conversations, even when on set. Orson Welles, who appeared on the show, recalled that Carson's pre-recorded chats with guests were shocking to the show's crew. This behavior was evident throughout the show, as Carson never pretended to laugh at guests' jokes and would end conversations early if he found them uninteresting. While it is understandable why Carson may have felt let down by Rivers' actions, the affair between them may have also played a role in the breakdown of their friendship.